he put her in a blender, the mother of his 2 children, his wife, and he watched YouTube videos while he did it. I'm going to go into the story a little bit more, but I'm going to talk about something bigger, and that is that her vision of Me Too that started in 2006, Tarana Burke, the one who started all of this, her vision was about the violence, the sexual violence, especially against women in society, including husbands, especially family members. But Hollywood took that movement and focused on work. This is, okay, I try to provide some sort of hope in all of my videos, and it's going to get worse. Things are really bad. It has been getting worse. It is getting worse. And also, wives and girlfriends and daughters and mothers and just women who have to deal with men inside a home in the private life are finally having our Me Too moment. Because before, even though like in 2017, when Hollywood focused it all on work, even though during that time women were sharing their stories in their personal lives and at work, the movement, people only cared about it, or like men only cared about it because it was impacting women's ability to work outside the home. Actresses can't really act if they are being essayed by directors, producers, executive producers, right? Their fellow co-stars. So we have intimacy coordinators. Not that the industry is like all that much better. I used to work in the film industry. I am not convinced that it's any better, but there are some things that have been put in motion to try to protect women. Sports, gymnastics, all of these sectors that are public sectors, but they're about women making money for men. Ooh, we cared about that, but nobody cared. I mean, except for like women, mostly women and femmes, nobody cared about how it impacts us in our private life behind closed doors. There's like a case here and there where, ooh, you can't admit out loud if you're, famous, that you were dating a teenager, because that makes you a now. So you just can't talk about it. But I believe, thanks to social media, especially TikTok, YouTube, and other platforms, Reddit, where women are talking about their lived experiences with these men in the home, and that men in the home are our number one threat. Not the men at work, although they are a threat too. It's the ones in our homes, in our lives, and our dads, grandpas, brothers. Not that women don't do this too, okay? Women can absolutely be offenders. But the main people who are doing this to women and children and femmes, it's men. And it's the men that love them the most, these family men. So I believe, as horrifying as it is that we are having a moment where women we're telling our stories, and we refuse to let society continue to tell us that we need these protectors, that we should literally marry and birth our oppressors, like seek it out. I'm not saying don't get married. I'm saying if this man isn't making your life so much better, and you also have an exit plan, and you also have money, and you also have legal protection if you tie yourself to this man, and even especially if you don't tie yourself to this man, you have a way out. We're not falling for it anymore. And all of these horrifying stories where these photos that are all over Instagram, women are starting to like not feel bad about themselves when they see this anymore, because she ended up in a blender. Ever since I've been alive, they've been telling me that this is what I should want. This is the goal. That, and then making him some babies too. And as hard as this moment is, the story after story after story, this is what we are is the reality for so many women. Not all women, but so many women. And that doing this, or just dating them and living with them, is one of the riskiest things that we can do, and we will not take this decision lightly, especially having their children, because once we have their children, they have locked us in. If you just type in husband, unalived wife, obviously use the other word, or I'm sorry, usually it's a passive voice, wife dies, and then put the word husband in that Google search, just for today, or just within a week, you will have story after story after story after story after story after story all over the world for all kinds of reasons. This was yesterday. This was Friday. This was Thursday. And it's all over the world. These are all different states, all different countries. It's everywhere. The context is different. The stupid reason for doing it, the trivial reason. The reason doesn't matter at this point. This is what they're doing to us. And their own children. And they'll traumatize whoever. They'll do it in front of whoever. And it tends to happen even more so the more vulnerable a woman is. If she is an immigrant to that country, therefore he has so much power over her immigration status, her money, her legal rights. If she is a mother, very vulnerable. Pregnant, very vulnerable. Poor, very vulnerable. If she is a Black, Indigenous, or another woman of color, but especially a Black, Indigenous woman, very vulnerable because of the police and because of all the systemic and personal racism of the people who are supposed to protect women from this. It's all over the place. You can't escape it. You can move to France and your husband, I mean, she was French. You could be in France and your husband, brings like 70 or more men to grape you, and also does that to his daughter-in-law and his own daughter and his own grandchildren. I'm not sure the details of what all he did, but he did stuff. You can be in Italy. It really doesn't matter where you are. And then they will always use, the only time they care about this is if it will somehow justify racism or xenophobia. The man who did this, who put her in a blender, he is like, what, German, Swiss? But of course, they tried to say he was Serbian. No. She was. So the good father, good husband, good guy, nice guy, family man, we're not believing it anymore. I already did like an hour-long breakdown of the horrific story of the Olympian who was burned, Rebecca, who was burned alive by her husband. No, sorry, not her husband. Whatever, I don't even, ex or whatever. A man who basically wanted her money and her property and thought he was entitled to it. This just happened. Like even living with boyfriends this will happen. I mean, France is having a moment right now with this horrifying case. There were protests in like over 30 cities around France yesterday. I tried to go to one here in Lyon, but they didn't have permission from the prefecture, so it was held like way outside of town. So I tried to go to it, but there weren't any people there. They all had to go out of town for it. But this happened all over France, because what this case is exposing is all these family men, these nice guys, these members of the community who were not only like graping their wives. This is about incest too. Incest. This is exposing what a huge problem that is, and how these family men are terrorizing their children too. And yet, they literally said this in the trial, which is one of the reasons why women are protesting, and besides all of it, and to support her. One of the lawyers literally said this. And so the way it's playing out, a lot of people are like so sick of the way they are able to, the defense attorneys are allowed to target the victims in these cases. And of course, all the men, I'm gonna have to do a separate video on this. I have unfortunately did follow up on the case after taking a week off from looking at it. And it is so much worse than y'all can imagine. It is so much worse. And the most annoying part is that almost all of these men, all of these accused men, paint themselves as the victims. Oh, this one man made me do it. I'm not saying that women aren't complicit in this. I don't know if you've seen this video of this woman literally put this on the internet of being so angry that she had another stupid daughter. You know, men do this. It doesn't surprise me when women do this. Y'all are creating little monsters. I'm not going to blame women for what men do, but I'm not going to say that we're not complicit in this, which is why we have to decenter men and deal with our trauma, because codependent women, pick-me women, toxic boy moms, cool girls, we enable men who are terrorizing the world. And it's not just men that have to wake up. It's us. We have to listen to these stories, watch these horrifying story after story after story, for us to get it in our thick heads that these men are capable of doing it to us. Men we love, men that we share beds with, our coworkers, our friends, men that we support, give money to, enable with our endless labor. We have to get out of our own denial, because Me Too should really be about our private life more than anything. So is femicide really actually getting worse? Yes. Yes, it is. But also, we are having a moment right now, right? I just want you to think back to 2017. God, that was such a hard year. I mean, 2016 and all that we had to deal with, you know, like the grabbing, like the election. Right? And then, you know, we started hearing more and more stories. But then 2017, when that hashtag went viral, do you remember how hard it was to read story after story after story after story? But that was just about like grape and essay and all that stuff. But really, it's about our relationships with these men. It is not the boogeyman who's doing this, although they do it too. It is, yes, it's men at work. But the most important people in our lives who are harming us are the very men we love most. And that is what this moment, I believe, is all about, is us reckoning with that. Us finally being like, oh my God. It's not just this man or that man. It's literally either in my home or the home of someone I love. Statistically, you know somebody who is being tortured by their partner. You may not know that's happening, but you know somebody. I'm going to go into her story just a little bit more, and then I'm going to move on to the more general thing. Now, his name has been out now. We don't care about Swiss privacy laws. He may not give his consent to have his name out there, but I have seen it all over, and I think this is true. Just Google her name plus the word husband, and you'll see it. She had 2 children from this man, 17 months apart. My guess is that he probably did this switch up after he had her locked in with children, because that either marriage or children is what locks you in. And a lot of these men, no matter how psychotic they are, they will hide it until you have no way out. Now, as much as I hate this stupid newspaper, they sometimes, I don't know, because they're probably paying more than anybody, have access to information that no one else I have seen anywhere else. I take everything with a grain of salt from this stupid publication because it's so racist and misogynistic. But I haven't seen this detail anywhere. Even though he pleads, self-defense and whatever, he literally killed her, dismembered her, put her in a blender. Before he did all that, though, he cut out her womb, y'all. This is like self-defense. Sounds like you really enjoyed doing this. Nobody who does self-defense in a panic will get a jigsaw knife and garden shears and dismember the mother of your children. Put her in a blender. And before you do all that, cut out her uterus? And definitely nobody is going to be watching YouTube videos on your phone while doing that. Oh, and guess who found her? Her dad. Dad called the husband and was like, where is she? Because the kindergarten garden teacher or whatever called him. Oh, she's in the laundry room. And again, they seem like the perfect family. But once they looked into this stuff, this seemed planned and a systemic approach over several hours in an attempt to y'all, I don't know. Like, it's like men are doing Breaking Bad stuff. Like, he might as well, this is like, oh, God. Oh, but look, surprise, surprise, he'd been violent before to a previous partner in a relationship that appears to have been immediately preceding the marriage. Does that mean he was cheating or what? I don't know what that means. But basically, just jumps from one woman to another. Always got to have some sort of prey. That partner gave evidence at a hearing this summer, which she documented his frequent tantrums, including a time he ran over her foot with a car, then later threatened to throw her out of the vehicle. Another time while driving, y'all remember I told you men will abuse you with cars? They will literally abuse you with their cars, either like with the car itself or while driving the car. He slammed on the brakes, leaving her with whiplash after she hit her head on the dashboard. Don't get into seriously. I've made so many videos last year about cars And I mean, that's literally how my ex almost took my life, with a car, driving over a cliff. Even though he's incarcerated, he's still hoping to be reunited with his daughters. Please don't ever let anyone near that man again, especially not his daughters. Look at this personal statement he put on LinkedIn a year. As a scout, I inspired to leave places, organizations, and people, and everything in my power better than I found them. Like in a blender. So we are in the middle of a global femicide epidemic. And while, despite general homicide rates decreasing, femicide rates have been rising continuously in the last 2 decades. And still, those figures don't totally take into account everything that's happened since COVID started. And also, the rates of femicide are so much higher for immigrant women, minorities, indigenous groups, women who, when language and religion and passports and immigration stuff and money and all kinds of other, that when men use the system itself to further trap you, and then also the system itself and the people in that system who are supposed to protect you are unbelievably racist and especially anti-black, this is going to be so much worse. So the Washington Post did a really great story on this a while ago. This was like 2 years ago. By the way, for anyone asking, Mose is home. We still don't know what's wrong with him. We're waiting for the results. On Tuesday, I think we get them. He's not really wanting to be on camera right now, so I'm not going to make him. But at least we were able to pick him up finally. That whole story is insane. I'll tell it one day. But the very expensive $900 test on Friday or whatever day that was, I don't know if it's going to actually tell us anything. So let's talk about femicide in the United States. Because it is everywhere. I think it's definitely worse in some places. Kenya, right now, I talked about that. I don't know everything about that, obviously, but I did some research to try to report on how bad it is there in my most recent story about Rebecca. But in 2022, according to a 2022 report by the Violence Policy Center, between 2014, the lowest year on record, and 2020, the incidence of femicide in the United States increased by 24%. In addition, intimate partner violence rose an estimated 8% during the pandemic. I mean, it's still it's still going around, but I think what they're talking about is the lockdowns and, things being shut down, people being stuck at home with the biggest predator in their life. Now, this does not surprise me, but I said that I think it's really a lot worse in the US because of pew-pew policy and stuff. Look at this. Among our peer countries, the United States accounts for 70% of the incidence of femicide, ranks 34th among all countries. In large part, that's because of the accessibility to firearms. Now, these reports aren't even accurate because the media reports have neglected to shine a light on this chilling reality, especially when Black women and Native American women and trans women are the targets, overwhelmingly are the targets of this violence. And yet we will not use the word femicide. And textbooks and the media gloss over the role of gendered and sexual violence in our nation's history. And of course, it doesn't help that they are now, banning books, especially anyone that talk about critical race theory. But to understand the current problem of femicide, we must put it in historical context, and in particular, in the context of white supremacy, U.S. expansion, and coverture. Under British common law, wives were considered an appendage of their husband, and a woman's legal identity was covered by that of her husband, Mr. and Ms. John Smith. That's why can we please stop doing that at weddings? They erase her first name when they announce it. Mr. and Ms. John Smith. Why don't you say John Smith and Angela Smith? Oh God. Also, I am not in favor of changing your name. I didn't change my name. I understand why people do change their name, and there's a lot of pressure, especially in the United States, to change your name if you're a woman who marries a man. But I am so against it because you lose so much, especially if you're a professional, especially if you're a writer or your name is attached to research or literally anything with your career. You lose so much. Also, men could just do whatever they wanted to women. In fact, schmegs workers had more rights than women married to men because, Madame would call the police because those women were workers and these men were threatening the business. But, if you're married to a man, sorry, good luck with that. Gendered and sexual violence was used as a tool to extend white settlers' control of land and enslaved people. So this is like our whole history in the United States. The foundation of that history is violence, but especially violence against women, violence against Black, Indigenous people, and especially with the whole manifest destiny crap. Look at this. The unaliving, enslaved women, and immigrant women, and women bolstered the manifest destiny rallying cry, for white Americans to settle the continent from coast to coast and to sustain the brutal practice of legalized slavery for 50 years after they banned the importation of enslaved people. After the Civil War, sexual violence remained a key component of white supremacy. And so the temperance movement, which is basically a lot of white women who were like, ban alcohol, our husbands are unaliving us, they missed the mark. They actually, a lot of them use like white supremacist talking points, or just straight up, like not even dog whistles, just literally were like, but immorality and purity and all this crap. And even though they, tried to shine a light on the violence of men in the home, this is why white feminism is pointless. It literally, it takes us backwards because it hinges on centering white women and screwing over all other women. Even in the Great Depression, the federal and state governments set up programs that limited how much aid single moms could qualify for and increased the surveillance of low-income women. So the New Deal was two-pronged. It was gender-based. Oh, and also those were all super racist too, especially anti-Black. For men, they got unemployment insurance, while women were qualified for welfare, which paid less, because the New Deal leaders believed that women should be supported by husbands. So the New Deal institutionalized women's economic dependence on men. Therefore, it doesn't matter how violent they are, how much they're raping us or beating us, as long as we're financially dependent on them, what are you going to do? Our grandmas were hostages. Not even kidding. Some of your grandmas loved your grandpas. I know those stories exist, but you will not convince me that most of our grandmas were not hostages. If they literally could choose to walk away, would they have? I'm pretty sure a lot of them would have if they had money. So second wave feminism, 1960s, they started talking about public policy towards like women, because like this is not a private family matter. Marital rape finally began to be recognized as a crime in the 70s, and really it wasn't really talked about that much and like taken super seriously until Lorena Bobbitt was humiliated in the media for whacking off her husband and tossing it out a window. I remember back then, I wrote a whole piece for this for Glamour. I just remember being like making fun of her because the whole media was making fun of her, and I was like, that's crazy, why would she do that? That woman needs a huge apology. 1974, women could finally have bank accounts. Although the book, They Were Her Property, talks a lot about how white women in the South got around this not being able to have money thing because the only thing that they could own were people. So white women were absolutely in favor of slavery because that was the only thing that guaranteed them financial freedom. They were super opposed to ending slavery. That's a whole nother, I highly recommend that book. Until the 1990s, there were more animal shelters in the United States than women's shelters. People kind of started to take more seriously that this is a structural thing and not just like, oops, a bad apple. Oops, a bad apple put a woman in her blender. There's been some stuff that's tried to protect women from violence, like the Violence Against Women Act, blah, 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 which actually did decrease the rate from 1994 to 2014. But it's been going ever since. Because one thing they are not going to do is ever put women above pew-pews. Also, policies consistently neglect the legacy of racism that has heightened the risk of violence of women of color and trans women. As I've covered in many videos before, if I call the police, I have no fear of being shot in the face. The police may not care about what happens to me unless it's used to justify racism. They love that. They may do nothing to help me, like they actually did nothing to help me. They put my life in more danger by calling them. But I never, because of their inaction, and because when they did take action, it actually made things worse for me. But I was never afraid they would unalive me. That the very people who were supposed to protect me would literally unalive me. I've never been worried about that. So that and all these other factors make it, the violence against women rate is so much higher the more marginalized you are, and especially black women in the United States. And Native American women, because they're not allowed to prosecute people who come onto tribal land and do this to them. Tribal courts can't prosecute people who are not Native American for committing crime against Native Americans on their land. Now, the only reason why I'm covering the U.S. is because that's where I was born and raised. That's my country. Those are my people. I do not think that this is not bad everywhere. And like I said, France is in a real crisis moment right now because this one case is exposing the family men everywhere. Everywhere. It's not just this little town. Over like 90 or 100 men in one area were doing, family men were doing this, and nobody reported it. All the people who saw it on the website, no one reported it. I don't think there's anywhere you can go to get away from this. It just plays out differently across the globe and across culture and across socioeconomic statuses and across different communities, intersections. But femicide, we are in a femicide epidemic. And it is horrifying every day to read the news. And yet, one of my favorite quotes that I've been living by for a long time is the truth will set you free, but first it might ruin your day or your week or your year or whatever. This moment of just like 2017, I believe this moment we're in right now, and that we've been in for the last few years, especially with weaponized incompetence, and talking more about narcissistic abuse and coercive control. And that's why I talk about men's moods and the hobosexual and the emotional abuse and all of these things, and how these men, even though they may never lay a hand on you, impact your immune system, your autoimmune disease, all this stuff. Women are talking, and we're telling our stories, and then the big crazy headline stories are so shocking and disturbing. And it's on top of what we've already been just digesting for a while. And it hurts. It's devastating. It feels so hopeless. And yet, anybody who has ever been through like an addiction, or anybody, I think in general, things a lot of times get so much worse before they get better. And facing these truths that are so hard to believe, that we don't want to believe, about our own fathers or our brothers or our stepfathers or our husbands or our boyfriends or our sons or our whatever. It is so hard for us to believe. And we're the victims of it. And then also for society to believe that this moment of accepting and processing these truths we can't ignore is brutal. It's so hard. It is like hitting rock bottom. And yet, nothing will change usually without these hard moments of reckoning, of holy crap, you can't deny it if it's every day. There's a horrifying, a blender. This isn't Dahmer. This is her husband, the father of her 2 daughters. The family man is having his moment of reckoning, and I am here for it, and I hate it. It's so painful. But the truth is setting us free, because the more we deny and don't want to believe it, the longer it goes on. I don't know if this is helpful. I don't know. Actually, I'm going to share one more hopeful thing. They released the security guard's interaction with Dominique, the French husband, who, when he got caught putting his phone under 3 different women's skirts. If you want some hope, this security guard was telling women, this man just did this to you, and he was insistent that they file a report. He was so angry. He went out of his way to do something. This video, I'll try to show a screenshot of it so you can go find it on yourself. It's on Twitter. It was really touching, because so often men just don't care. This man cared enough to make sure 3 women, he was like, no. And if this man hadn't reported this, all of these men would be continuing to get away with their crimes. I hate to give men too much credit for things, but when we say we need men to do something, we need men to stand up to other men, this is what we're talking about. Him not letting that man get away with it led to this and has mobilized a whole nation of women, and actually a lot of women around the world, for the shame to change side. Thanks for watching, and please join my Patreon. Like, comment, share, all that stuff. I very much appreciate it. Take care of yourself. I'm not going to sing a comment song today, but I did want to show you the profile of allegedly Blender Man. Yep, that's allegedly his name, his LinkedIn profile. I thought I'd just provide that information. I don't know. Maybe that's not him, but the internet says it is. Anyway, here are some photos of Mouse, because he's not in this video. This is some cat stuff for the cat people out there. It's one of Erica's little cute cats. Some more Mo stuff. Even when he's not feeling great, he still sits so delicately. This is how he looks at me every time I try to leave. And he's a little insane. Anyway, take care of yourself, y'all. This is a hard time right now, but I think, well, whatever. I already said it all in the video. Take breaks, take lots of breaks, and thanks for watching. Let me know what you think. Okay, bye.